All Akarna wanted was a man. Not just any man though, but the crown prince who she had dated for 5 years and looked toward having an eternity with. She didn't love him because of his spot in the monarchy. She was genuine, yet what she got for her genuineness was a harsh bomb drop on her plans. The crown prince never saw her as fit enough to be empress, and when he was done toying with her, he planned to cut things off and make her his concubine. Salt in her wounds, to be honest. She wanted to get a proposal for him and was left to watch him get married to another woman. Akarna was hurting, and somehow that hurt, in future, lands her in a forest with the 30 sons of Alandos who proposed to her. It's a funny turn of events still. Let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's pace back a few months. She is in a carriage. It's a stormy evening, and she'd rather be anywhere else but here, if not for the heavenly mission she is on. The carriage driver and an escort try to make sure the ride is as smooth as possible and comfortable too, assuring her that they'll arrive at their destination in a jiffy. Once they ensure she is decent, they get to chatting, first about her and how she looks unwell, and then her situation. It's the talk of the town, and apparently, the only thing they can think of to discuss, as a means to pass time. They discuss how the crown prince wants to leave her and get married to someone else, but it's this exact thing she doesn't want to hear about. She recalls that afternoon when the crown prince who she had dated for 5 years, not minding the opinions of the temple and the imperial family, instead of proposing to her, introduced her to the woman he planned to get engaged to. Looking back, all that crosses her mind is disbelief that true love can spawn from mere titles. Being an elite isn't enough to write a proper romantic future, she thinks. But unlike the noble lady, she is a Karna of the temple and messenger of the gods. It is a delicate duty, but in her world it's mud on the street and described as ugly, rather than nobility. Even this journey she is embarking on is an assignment from God, but no one is taking it as seriously as she is. Plus, it's not some walk in the park, but her needing to shed her blood voluntarily to purify this land of the terrible magic binding it. Akarna dreads this duty, only taking it up because the land she is cleansing will be ruled by the man after her heart, that two-timing crown prince. She's been carrying out her duties flawlessly, refusing nothing, yet in the end he offered her a spot as a concubine and claimed that his marriage with the other woman was only political. Akarna still doesn't know what to make of this, thinking about it so deeply that it takes the unsteadiness of the carriage to snap her out of it. She doesn't know why it's been shaking and isn't even allowed to guess because of the driver who yells, "Landslide." Akarna's heart sinks, her blood cold, freezing when one of the men declares that if they don't avoid the landslide, they'll all die. Initially, they attempt dodging it, not to save their passenger, but themselves, and when they see they can't make it out with the carriage, they ditch it and skedaddle, leaving poor Akarna in the doomed carriage. Her only protection is the carriage walls constantly being smashed by hard earth until they give way and cast her out. Talk about bad luck. Just when she thinks it's over for her, Akarna manages to hold on to a piece of the shattered carriage as she dangles hopelessly at the edge of the landslide-created cliff. That piece is the only thing keeping her from falling to certain doom. Her escorts, who manage to get to safety, return to find her and discover her dangling. Since the landslide has stopped, they instruct her to hold on for a bit longer, so they can come to her aid. The woman they want to save, however, doesn't see a bright future in store for herself. It'll undoubtedly be foggy for her when she goes back, a life of a revered saintess, filled with helping the citizens of the empire. In the past, she was willing to put up with a lot to earn a grand wedding with her beloved. Without him, she views no reason to keep living and willingly lets go. At light speed, she drops from the cliff, falling into uncertainty, but this isn't the first time she is feeling this way. You know, like she is falling helplessly. The thing is, she isn't off this world, she is from a more modern time. But one day, she woke up in this strange world, amongst strange people who she didn't understand. It was 5 years ago, the day she fell into this place from the sky. The day before this happened, though, she had gone to bed and hoped to be woken by the ring of her alarm clock for another tedious day. As she gazed around, puzzled, unable to understand how she got here, some of the people around her were praying, while others looked more awestruck than her. Amidst these people was a priest, who came to her and spoke in a language she was shocked she understood. The man told her she was Akarna, the woman who came to Earth to convey the will of their god, and cold sweat ran down her face. It was the best way she could react to an explanation so bogus. She was about to tell the man that he got the wrong person, but went quiet almost immediately, as she worried that, although she could understand him, he couldn't understand her. After considering that possibility, she still planned to speak up, but was too slow. The priest had taken her hand and sliced it with a blade. That was a terrible first impression, if you ask me, but she calmed down upon noticing that the wound had healed in seconds, leaving no mark in its place. She stared at her hand astonished. but that was only the beginning of the surprises he had in store for her in his attempt to prove to her that she was a messenger from their god. The second part involved him cutting himself with the same blade, causing a large wound that he healed by dropping some of her blood on his hand. She hadn't recovered from the double shock, yet he was willing to show her more proof that she is a Karna, if she wanted to see more proof. Without hesitating, however, she refused any more illustrations and tried to catch her breath. Later on, she took up the role of a Karna, not minding the language barrier that only allowed her to understand their language but not speak it. Coupled with that issue, she felt a choking silence wherever she went, one aligned with her being a stranger. Even though she had servants and everyone seemed to support her and take care of her, she sensed that they looked down on her. Maybe the high priest felt the same as them, but he didn't show it after all. All he needed her to do was fulfill the duties of a Karna. Duties she knew she couldn't avoid, because performing them was the only choice she had aside death. As she was taken to a room filled with infirm citizens wailing her name, to heal them, the priest warned her that if she didn't perform her duties, he would conclude the spirit of a Karna made a mistake by resting in her. While the being herself was immortal, her spirit got passed on from one body to the next after the death of the previous hosts. It didn't matter how the previous host lost her life though. In other words, she could be sacrificed just to usher in her successor. I'm sure you'd expect her to attempt escaping this place, but that was going to be hard, due to the language barrier. With no clear way out of her predicament, Akarna did whatever she was asked, shedding her blood to heal the sick, the possessed and even barren lands. Obviously, she didn't like the life she was thrown into. Compared to her life in the modern-day world, this was slavery. Slavery that she sat to think about every day. Her only comfort nonetheless was the blue sky. It looked like the one from her original timeline and put a smile on her face whenever she thought about it. Well, that was until one fateful sky-gazing day the future love of her life obstructed her view with his handsome, curious face. On that day, he noticed her crying, a norm for her, but he butted in seeking to know why she was down. I'm not sure she understood him, or he understood her, but he kindly stretched out a handkerchief for her to dry her tears. Without hesitating, she thanked him for the kind gesture, but her thanks received a cold reception. Cold as in his guards looked like she just swore at the crown prince, and even the crown prince looked uneasy. Helping the chilly atmosphere was Akarna's maid who rushed in and apologized to him on her behalf. She expressed what looked like staged worry for Akarna and informed him of her identity and inability to understand their language. He couldn't believe she didn't understand them after staying there for so long. However, he was willing to teach her their language and how to write in it. He reveals that he was there to see her anyway, but didn't introduce himself properly because he recognized her until the maid stepped in. He didn't state why, but was willing to teach her as some sort of payment to her for all her help to the empire. Such kindness was long overdue, something she didn't expect to see from a land whose people ignored her and kept her at arm's length. Like a proper gentleman, he planted a kiss on her hand, mid-conversation, and invited her to hang out with him since he was available in town for the time being. After mesmerizing her with etiquette, the smooth criminal finally aired out his name, Prince Aleph Kabod of the Kabod Empire. Following his offer and her acceptance, the man engaged her in language classes. Not his servants or wise men, him, the crown prince, the most powerful man in the empire and the war hero who led the Kabod Empire to many battle triumphs. For someone so war-grounded, however, he was the same age as Akarna, and upon that, a good teacher. On the other hand, she was a speedy learner, getting the basics so quickly that he had to commend her and ask if she had any studying experience. She did. I mean, being able to learn was commonplace in her world, but not in Kabod. It was rare to find a woman her age who was as knowledgeable as she was, due to the male superiority-based rules that ran the land. The man was marveled to a standstill and confessed that she was fun to teach. Akarna, within her, knew learning with him was fun, but kept that to herself. As time went on, Aleph began to throw himself into her many messenger of God duties, using his position as crown prince and her language teacher to his advantage. Her time with him soon began to feel like a dream, and with time he divulged into teaching her other stuff aside language. Sometimes they'd sneak out of the temple and palace together, disguising themselves in cloaks to blend in with the common folk. Because of him, her escorts eased up on her and became more friendly. The man was powerful, so that was to be expected. But spending time with him was magical, and those moments made her see him as an ordinary man, and herself an ordinary woman and not a Karna. They gathered lots of memories outside the shackles of the castle, but she could never forget their first day sneaking out, all the beer they drank, how bubbly he made her feel. But why are those memories playing out on this day of all days, her last day in this wretched land, so she thinks. Dying was the reason why she let herself fall off the cliff, but for some reason, this land has refused to release its hold on her, sparing her the mercy she seeks. Along with the despair she gets from surviving is a sprained ankle. It's not one so serious that she can't move, so she decides to get moving, slowly dragging herself through the rainy, dark forest. It was already late, and if she spends a few more hours out here, she'll be left to the monsters and other fates worse than death. She would have died if not for the anatomy of a Karna, which blessed her with a body that is much tougher than the average human. With nothing but a gory fate ahead of her, Akarna's will to die has vanished like the wind, leaving behind a desperate will to survive. With her new mindset, she pulls herself into a nearby cave that shields her from the rain, but also brings her face to face with a despised creature. It's wounded, looking like it survived a tough battle, and has its guard up as it stares at her. But seeing him, she can't help but think about the day she learned of the existence of its kind. It was Aleph who gave her the lecture and even informed her of the demons and monsters, among other things that lived outside the walls of the Kabod Empire. The creatures threatened the safety of their people with the dark energy they possessed, so the Empire had the army and the holy force to stand against them. In other words, they had Akarna's and Aleph's units handling the big bads. Before her, they had vanquished countless demons and monsters and purified lands tainted with dark energy, but the despised species refused to accept them. They refused their way and their power, preferring to tackle their problems by themselves, without the aid of the Empire. Then, Akarna thought their belief absurd and Aleph thought it foolish, but she could relate, to an extent. She recalled a time back in her world when she was overwhelmed with work and prayed to God to help her out. But no one helped her, and assumed the despised species would be more welcoming if they had received help from the god of the Kabod Empire. After receiving that help, believing was up to them. Her resolve confused Aleph and made him conclude that she said odd things sometimes because she was a Karna. Hearing him say that, she decided it was better to explain than leave him in the clouds, and told him that although she still had a hard time settling in as a Karna, she always found joy in the happiness of a patient she healed. She felt frustrated that the despised ones rejected that power. Aleph agreed with her and opened up about his goal to make the world a better place. He didn't want to focus his ideology on the Empire alone, and admitted it sounded stupid, but Akarna saw something different. She found his desire admirable and, in a romantic turn of events, agreed to help him achieve his dream by journeying with him to far lands, including the land of the despised ones, for his dream. They made a promise that day to see it through, but yeah, fate had other plans and has led her to a despised one. Watching her from a corner, he gets agitated by her continuously gazing at him, but she doesn't feel threatened. For naught, she is curious about whether or not it can talk, and the wound on his chest. Her holy power helps her know his wounds are caused by dark energy. Left untreated, the creature was bound to die in a day, and she is too caring to let that happen and asks him if she can help him out. Sadly, her making a move towards him pisses him off, and he tosses a knife at her, injuring her. Without saying a word, he stretches another knife at her, silently informing her that he tossed a warning shot. Shocked, she falls to the floor, more focused on her delayed healing ability than she is on her safety. She fears that the fall might have taken too much out of her and pulls back, crouching in the corner, while maintaining the distance between herself and the despised one. She was only trying to help him, and now she is hurt, adding this pain to the one she got from being betrayed by someone she loved, and not being able to do anything about the betrayal. She feels pathetic, sad that even now, she thinks about the happy memories they created to help her stay sane. With tears in her eyes, Akarna blames herself for not being able to die properly. She can't understand why she has to keep living like this, only for her to notice someone more pathetic. The despised one that was about to die from the dark energy wound she wanted to heal. Watching him struggle, she hops to the rescue, cutting herself with the same dagger he used to stab her. So, the plan is to heal the creature, while ending her own life from blood loss, a plan she thought was bound to work. At the last minute, she doesn't even think about the despised one and is more focused on ending her sorrow-stricken life. She thinks her plan works when she starts to feel dizzy and collapses, but with her hands, she flawed her demise. How can the creature she just saved let her die? Of course, his first reaction is catching her once it notices she has healed him. As he saves her, Akarna feels a comfort she has been starved of for a while now, and in her passed-out state, she recounts the warmth of Aleph's warm embrace. Remembering that reminds her of how her obsession towards him started and flourished like a forest fire. She longed to be near him, patiently waited for him to visit her, and eventually, she discovered that it wasn't only her getting burnt by the fire of obsession, but him as well. She didn't know until the day she went on an assignment in a place outside his jurisdiction and he came to see her. She didn't understand why he went so far to see her and needed an explanation for his visit. With his face tomato red, he closed the distance between them and explained himself to her with a kiss. Upon finding out they felt the same way about each other, a beautiful love story began. The crown prince, a dreamlike man, and the messenger sent by the gods. She saw their union as one approved by the gods. She even started to think that the gods sent her to Kabod to meet with the prince, instead of her suffering a harsh life like other Akarnas before her. Before long, she stopped missing her homeland and began enjoying her time with Aleph. It got to the point that she looked forward to a bright future of marital bliss with him. Her dreams, sadly, only lasted for 5 years, ending on the day he announced his plan to get married to someone else. His big confession made her think he was seeing other women while they were together. He tried to defend himself and blamed his decision on the corrupt system that demanded that people of noble blood get married to people of noble blood. Akarna had heard whispers in the empire about Aleph being betrothed to the count's daughter. The citizens down-talked her behind her back for running around with him while he was betrothed, but she ignored, because he never brought it up. She chose to blindly hope for the best, but she cast that hope aside when he began spouting rubbish about how the marriage was purely political, and she was the only one he loved. Initially, she let him pull her close, but his arms felt like nails, and so she pushed him away and declared she wasn't just throwing a tantrum. Seeing that she was actually annoyed, Aleph went from sweet and loving to icy cold, scolding her for requesting that he abandon the greater good for her. Was it all an act? She couldn't tell, but back then it became certain that even as a Kana, she was just a commoner with no access to the crown prince. Alongside that realization, she perceived the scent of infidelity, because during her 5-year relationship with the crown prince, not once did she conceive by accident. A marriage with the crown prince and no heir was impossible, but upon these truths, a hopeless Akarna pushed on. She hoped Aleph's wife-to-be would understand their situation. It was unlikely, but the man was willing to arrange a meeting between both women. Weeks passed and finally, the day of the dreaded meeting arrived. On that day, the count's daughter offered Akarna a deal. In exchange for her permitting Aleph and her to continue running around, she would owe her a favor. She saw herself as a woman who could give him the support of the nobles, an offspring, and was willing to let Akarna be his concubine. She probably agreed to meet to establish her position as the wife of the crown prince. Before the meeting, rumors spread concerning the love triangle. Many thought the count's daughter kind, for not being offended that Akarna had ties with her man, and thought Aleph as kind too, for accommodating Akarna upon her rumored infidelity. The woman in the middle of it all was singled out as a blank, nothing but a stumbling block to the crown prince's marriage. Being cast out made her wonder if she was the only fool willing to cling to love. She had tossed out her desire to go back to her previous life and accepted her present all for a future with Aleph. She was willing to throw away everything for that man, but in the end, he lured her into a meeting with his wife-to-be. Even though a part of her knew she was in deep waters, Akarna kept fighting for love. Backing down finally, when her rival made it clear that the crown prince wasn't going to ignore her influence for a mere messenger. That day she lost her will to keep going, and she was reminded that her 5 years in the Kabod Empire didn't stop her from being an outsider. She thinks on all this, while in the arms of the despised one, who looks like he wants to help her, but doesn't know how. He has no idea she wants to die and ends up reviving her. That's why she wakes up hours later, alive and still in the cave. Puzzled, the first thing on her mind is the wound on her hand. A sharp pain reminds her about it, but when she inspects it, she notices it's all bandaged up. Staring at the fresh bandages, Akarna remembers that she tried to end her life and gets pissed at how tenacious it is being. She doesn't think about it for long, however, before remembering the creature she was in the cave with. Just then she turns and their eyes meet. He seems glad she is awake and tries talking to her in his language, but she refuses to respond, even though she understands the unfamiliar language he is speaking. Her refusal to respond, nevertheless, leaves a chilly silence in the cave, which he fills by revealing he knows she is a stranger. Is it that obvious? Anyway, she hates the tag and turns away from him in disdain. She is probably trying to tell him to butt off, but he doesn't get the memo and offers to get her something to eat. His first choice is berries, which he assures her are not poisonous. Yet she remains unresponsive. Her refusal to cooperate doesn't stop the creature. Instead, it motivates him to keep trying to socialize by asking to see her injury. Akarna refuses sternly, pulling her hand away from him. She believes he has no right to play hero, when it was he who stretched the dagger at her, in the first place. Passionately, he pulls closer and apologizes for his rudeness earlier on. To his surprise, even after apologizing, she refuses to speak. That's when he considers the possibility of a language barrier and asks her if she can speak his native tongue. Akarna, seeing no reason to lie, confesses that she can only understand him. She only speaks the imperial language, and it's a language he surprisingly understands, although he isn't perfect at speaking it. Maybe because it's his first time speaking in human tongue. Still, the lot he knows will do for now, as he just needs enough to communicate while they are together. That being said, he tells her he is aware she saved him from the dark magic, and he would like to return the favor by taking her to a place where she can be cleaned and disinfected. Although she is aware that that's what he said, she willfully misinterprets his words, thinking he wants to forcefully take her with him. Some months ago, she overheard a few followers talking about how valuable she was, not only to the Empire, but to forces outside its walls. For that reason, she refuses to follow him. She again wants to try out her chances in the dark forest, all by herself, but he is convinced that's a foolish idea. Earnestly, the despised one begs her not to misunderstand his actions. He only wants to repay her for saving him. His words mean nothing to the determined Akarna, who even declines his offer to at least escort her to the Empire. She is sure people are on their way to save her and wants to try her luck with waiting for them to arrive. The woman is fixated on leaving, so he refuses to try to stop her anymore and kindly wraps her in a cloak. It'll keep her warm during her pointless trek across the vast dark forest. The despised one roots for her survival, showing how true his intentions actually are. Akarna, during her walk, radiates regret. She had hoped she could trace back her steps in order to get back to the crash site, but she was wrong and noticed that for some time she had been walking in circles under the rain. Disregarding all fear of the monsters in the dark forest, Akarna decides to take a breather before continuing. Clutching herself by a rock close by, she concludes that she cannot endure anymore and prays the rescue team come for her quickly. Following that wish, she passes out, only waking up 3 days later to a pleasant smell. The scent happens to come from the despised one who is giving her a piggyback ride, so she orders him to put her down. The kind creature refuses, however, stating that he can't do that, because if he does, she'll die. Given the condition he found her in. He found her after 3 days, passed out, and is curious to know why someone hasn't come for her yet. A part of her feels neglected, but another wants to cling on to the false hope that someone is coming to get her. That part isn't okay with the despised one taking her farther away from the crash site, but when she tries to contest, he cuts her halfway, declaring that he only wants to get her treated. Once that's settled, he plans to take her back to the Empire. On getting his assurance that he will do as he has promised, she breaks down, because she misses home. Certainly the home she is talking about isn't the Kabud Empire, but her life in her world. Anyway, the despised one managed to get her to a safe place, and she was bedridden for days, sick. If she was sent back to the Empire and she kept falling sick, it wouldn't take long for the followers to kill her and usher in a new Akarna. They would waste no time on a sickly Akarna. The woman who chose death suddenly fears it to the extent of her getting paranoid and worrying that the despised one is trying to kill her. In truth, he isn't. He is trying to administer medicine to her, but she fights him off with all the power she has left. Even though she is burning up and dying of a fever, she refuses to comply, so he has to go the extra mile, drinking the medicine and then giving it to her orally, with a kiss that surprisingly revives her. At the end, he is blushing sheepishly, blaming her fever for the extra time they spent with lips locked. Once the heat of the kiss dies down, she starts feeling cold, the aftermath of the fever she experienced. Noticing how cold she is, the despised one warms her with a blanket and himself. In the days that followed, he took meticulous care of her, got her a change of clothes, and helped her get even better. Once he did all this, her senses fully returned, and he decides it's time he got her to a place where she can recover fully. He is tired of staying outside and wants to take her to his home, where his companions reside, and the journey from there is much brighter than it was at the start, and much to her disagreement, he carries her halfway. When she gets fed up, she asks to be let down, arguing that she can walk on her own, but he refuses. His reason being that her body heals at an unusual speed. It's because of this reason that her ankle healed so fast, but incorrectly. Right now, he sees her healing ability as a curse, although she disagrees. This is her first time hearing something like this, so she finds it hard to believe, but the creature explains that every power has a backlash, using this as his way of trying to get her to believe him. Nonchalantly, she defends her ability and how quickly it heals her, making him conclude that she cut her hand on purpose. He scoffs at her harming herself just because she can recover quickly and reminds her of the fever and pain she endured for days as a result of her little stunt. The way he sees it, she's careless about her healing ability because she has no one to explain things for her. Well, she doesn't think she needed these lectures back then. This is her first time away from the Empire and also the first time she tried to fend for herself since she got here. For some reason, during the journey, Akarna gets curious, wanting to ask the creature a question when he introduces himself as Ransel. Her knowing his name is much better, plus Ransel is much better than the despised one. Taking the correction, she goes on to ask him if he'll really take her back when she wants to return to the Empire. He replies that he would, swearing by Alanthus, who probably is his god or something. She takes note of the importance the name seems to carry and decides to believe him, not only because of how honest he sounds, but also because of the efforts he put into making her feel better. Feeling reassured, she observes Ransel's face so closely, comparing it to how it was when they first met. In the process of observing, she stares too long and out of curiosity, she touches his ear. His first reaction in response to that is shock, which is why he almost drops her. His second reaction, however, is shyness, which is why his face turns blood red. The creature looks utterly embarrassed and calls Akarna a shameless woman, but she thinks his reaction is a bit excessive. He didn't react this badly when they kissed. Nevertheless, she apologizes for making him feel bad. Noticing that he had been rude, Ransel apologizes for his tone as he gently drops her. Switching gears, he asks for her name, a question she doesn't think is important until he stresses about it. Her initial plan is to tell him her real name, Seo Jiwoo, but she thinks it a tongue twister and tells him Akarna instead. That should be much simpler for him, it's just a proper introduction, yet for some reason he takes it too seriously, expressing surprise that she opened up to him in a place like this. What does that even mean? She has no idea, but that doesn't stop him from praising her for choosing him. Before she can ask what that means, he silences her with a warm kiss, reminding her of the first time they locked lips. Eventually, she pulls away, but that makes him feel bad. He assumes she pushed back in denial and she doesn't want him anymore, making it look like she was the one who started the awkwardness. She racks her brain to find where she went wrong and traces it back to the moment she touched his ear. It was then all this madness started, which means her touching his ear is a show of attraction. Ransel has no idea she didn't know what she was doing and blushes shyly while admitting he didn't think she would be interested in his kind. Plus doesn't think himself attractive, especially because of his scent, which he thinks is bad. On the contrary, Akarna thinks his scent lovely and does her best to convince him that she really thinks that way. She also admits she finds him attractive, a compliment that encourages him to keep up the intimacy. Sure, she experienced some desire-filled nights with the Crown Prince, but Ransel makes her feel something else. Something so deep that she doesn't even notice when he pledges his life to her. He is talking like they are a married couple or something, but she doesn't stop him. Instead, she tears up due to heated joy. When Ransel notices her tears, he folds like a leaf and starts apologizing. He blames himself for doing something wrong, explaining that this was his first time with a human, but she lets him know he isn't the cause of her tears. The real cause is the Crown Prince and her memories of him. They bring her tears. Right on cue, rain starts to pour down, killing the sweet romantic vibe. The pair are now forced to take shelter in a shed nearby. As they settle down, he asks her to rest, intending to stand guard, but Akarna foils his plan by calling him and feeling on his ears again. For some reason, she gets a different reaction from him, like he is upset. He wants to leave, due to the mood she has put him in, but she stops him, begging him not to go. He thinks he made some kind of mistake. But as he bothers about that, she thinks about Aleph. He claimed to love her, yet he gave his heart and body to someone else while she remains shackled to the past. Ransel can see she is in pain, which is almost true. What's really happening is she wants to be free from that man's hold on her. For that reason, she begs him for intimacy. Observing her, Ransel notices that the look on her face now is similar to the one she had when she pulled the dagger on herself, the day they met. Anyway, he did pledge his life to her, so he doesn't hold back, giving her what she wants. In the end, all she can think about while she is with Ransel is him and not the Crown Prince. The pair get warm a few more times after that, and Akarna is overfed, having enough time to relax as time passes. By the time they leave the shed and start their journey to Ransel's home, she feels healthier than she was when they met. Before they start their journey, he picks her up, letting her know that they'll travel with her in his arms. He also instructs her to be cautious about how much she reveals when they get to his place. He prefers she acts like a normal human, something she can do. After his charge, he holds her tight and leaps toward home, big jump by big jump. The heights he can reach are astonishing, but she is okay with it, even though he is taking her farther away from the crash site. She must really have given up on being rescued. After all, one of the reasons why she embarked on the journey out of the Empire was to get as far away from Aleph as possible. Looking at now, she is aware the forest they are skiing through is not a demonic settlement, even though it's on the outer wall. It also isn't a human settlement, meaning it must be home to his kind. Sure, Ransel is nice to her, but she fears the others might not be as kind. When she arrives at his home, nevertheless, she starts to think differently. The place was warm, his brethren were welcoming, though shocked to see him. They are glad he is alive, but amidst their gladness, she can spot indifference. Could it be that death means nothing to them? If that's so, then she wonders what made them turn out this way. She's busy thinking, when they notice her and request an introduction, which Ransel gives. According to him, Akarna is a woman who helped him recover in the forest. He claims he desires to repay her kindness by housing her for a bit. His long-haired brethren Tavon finds his story hard to believe. He complains that the injuries were so severe that they let him go, but Ransel replies that his being here is proof that he is telling the truth. For now, he doesn't want to go into details, but he will later on. What he wants to discuss at the moment is the guest he brought and her leg, which he'll like a certain Callan to look into. One of his brethren, who doesn't seem happy about her being here, replies that some Helka offended Callan, making today a wrong day for him to inspect the guest. Plus it was a full moon night, which is supposed to mean something, and the Helka in question keeps saying he'll die soon. There is too much on their hands to add an outsider to their worries, he adds, before leaving. The other brethren follow suit, sparking tension, but Ransel calms Akarna down. According to him, this attitude was just another Tuesday among him and his brethren. He doesn't want her worrying about that, but admonishes her to focus on getting rest. For that reason, he asks her to follow him, and she does, even though she notices that in this village, she is the only woman. Could the rest be hiding? It'll be creepy if it's just her, though. Casting worry aside, she walks with Ransel to the house he used to stay at, where he gets her a change of clothes. He got the smallest size for her, but understands that it still might be too big on her. That aside, he welcomes her to come to him if she needs anything else. Akana is sure to remember that, but considering how awkward things between them have been so far, even after they journeyed so many miles together, she thinks he was bluffing when he declared that he belonged to her. That and some other heartwarming stuff he said. To be sure she isn't overthinking his actions, she boldly asks him what they are to each other. The question flattens poor Ransel. He is silent initially, but after some seconds he gets himself together and replies that for now he is only her temporary guardian. He hasn't forgotten that she said people were going to come get her, and he wants to watch over her until then. He believes there's a lot of people waiting for her, due to how confident she sounded. If he were right though, her vibe wouldn't have died. She wouldn't have immediately turned sad, but he can't see that. She silently doesn't want to go back to her life if being just an asset to the temple and the empire, an item to them, but a part of her also holds on to the chance that someone is actually waiting for her, maybe a lot of people, with the crown prince included. She expected a better response from him, but this one sets her back on the path of reality. For that reason, she tells him that there is someone she was to get married to. Although that's not true, she wants to use this to chase him off. After all, she is using him to vent her Aleph-based frustrations. Ransel, yet still, is hopeful about where he ranks in her life. He doesn't mind coming second. She was about to apologize to him for leading him on, but this response was not expected. She wonders if his kind doesn't care about things like this, but Ransel reveals that he doesn't mind being way below second, believing that a woman like her has many options. His conclusion is absurd. Right now, the only men of interest to her are him and Aleph, but she is willing to crush the rank system and delete the crown prince from her list. How can she see him as dear, when he didn't even keep his promises of loyalty? Akarna lets Ransel know she is willing to make him her number one, a conclusion that leaves him smiling brightly. He starts getting touchy from the joy, only to get interrupted by his brethren who are at his door. Like earlier, they look on edge, but he assures Akarna it's fine. He was about saying he doesn't mind being her number even after he returns her to her people, or maybe he wanted to say something else. We can't say for sure, but for some minutes he'll have to leave his lady on her own. Before going, he advises her to stay indoors tonight. He acknowledges that things might get troublesome, but he can't stay with her on a full moon night like this. There'll be trouble in the village and his comrades need his help. She fears the trouble he is talking about are demonic beasts, monsters that grow stronger on nights like this one. Even the Empire was on lockdown on nights like this, and they had divine protection. For a place like this without that protection, she knows things will be tough for them. The look on Akarna's face informs Ransel that she understands what he is talking about, meaning he doesn't need to explain more. Plus, her divine powers gave her a heads up concerning the beast that exists in the village. She is certain it is more vicious than ordinary demonic beasts, meaning Ransel must have been beat up by that thing, hours or days before she bumped into him at the cave. He can tell she is worried, but he downplays the severity of things, asking her not to worry about him and rest. He promises he'll be back with a beaming smile, but how can he be so sure? For the time being, she trusts Ransel, and it looks like they have everything under control. Her worries are non-existent until late into the night when the dreaded full moon is out and a cry pierces through the air, waking her up from her gentle slumber. Afraid and worried, Akarna peeps out the window to try to see what's going on. Maybe that would calm her down, but looking out the window is next to pointless. It's dark, and all she has to go with is the eerie aura that leaks into the room. It's familiar energy to her. The demonic energy she sensed earlier, but on steroids. She knows that this concentration of demonic energy can only come from a person who is so filled with demonic energy that they get to their limit and explode. If this happened in the Empire, there'd be guards all over and people close by would be evacuated, as this type of demonic energy doesn't just kill the host. Added to killing the host, it contaminates the entire area with demonic energy and can annihilate an entire region. In other words, this is very bad. To think she has found a safe place. At times like this, only one being can purge the host of their demonic energy. That being is the Akarna. So, yeah, she is this tribe's only hope. If she doesn't step in, the village and every creature in it is doomed. It is her duty to calm this situation, and she does have to protect Ransel, the creature who has shown her true kindness. As an Akarna, she has learned and seen a lot. In times of disaster, there are those who stand for the weak and embrace them, while there are those who take advantage of them and steal from them. They only think about their survival and don't mind using the weak to achieve it. She has seen these weak, sick and injured, be abandoned countless times, but the folly of the shameless ones didn't end there. When they found out of her existence and her ability, they sought to use her to their advantage. They would have prevailed if not for the temple that protected her. She needed the temple as much as it needed her, but out here, there is no temple to protect her, and all the creatures here are male. That's enough to make her wary. She doesn't know what would happen if they discover she is Akarna, but the more cries she hears, the more she is moved to want to help out. At least for Ransel's sake, she has to do something. His presence is the only thing in the village that she can trust. She has always been disappointed by people she trusted, and finds it difficult to trust people again. Even though she wants to trust again, she wants to trust Ransel, though she fears making the same mistake again and getting backstabbed. In the end, her happy memories with her new lover prevail, and she storms out of the room to help. Being backstabbed 1,000 times can't stop her from making this 1,001st attempt at trusting people. Following the sounds coming from the beast-related commotion, Akarna scurries through the dark pathway, eventually ending up at the commotion itself. There she sees Ransel and his brethren trying to subdue a demonic entity. From her hiding place, she feels like the monster is glaring at her. She isn't wrong, seeing as it dashes toward her. Not only does it blow her cover, but it looks like it wants to harm her. Ransel's brethren are about to fire at her and the beast, when Callan stops them, yelling, "Stop! Don't shoot! She's an outsider." The rest complain about her being outside, unable to understand why she disobeyed instructions and came out. They urge her to stay back, but she refuses to do so when she notices that the monster they want to kill is actually one of their own. One of them steps in, annoyed she is putting herself in harm's way, but she wants to know what they are trying to do. Without hesitating, she tells him that they plan to kill their comrade by morning, but she scolds them for wanting to do that. Based on her past experiences, she assumes they are trying to prey on a demon-injured comrade. She thinks him weak and concludes these creatures do stuff like this on a regular basis. Her presumption meets serious backlash from the others. How can an outsider understand that their brethren, Helka, is not weak? He is greatly important to them and had long determined that he would die on this night to end his suffering. This is his will and they are bound to honor his request, but that doesn't make it any easier. She didn't notice it at first, but some of them were crying while trying to bring his suffering to an end. Akarna apologizes for having misunderstood them, but that doesn't stop her from standing her ground, refusing to step aside. Another tries to convince her to let them end this before it's too late and the night is over, but she argues that she can heal him. Then and there, in front of all Ransel's comrades. She doesn't mind setting her safety aside for this one who is troubled. Using Ransel as her stronghold, she begs that they let her heal Helka like she healed Ransel. But asking this prompts Kaelin to inform her that Ransel's wounds were caused by the one she is trying to protect. Like her, we all thought it was caused by a demonic beast, and Kaelin compares him to one, given the state he is in right now. He agrees that he doesn't know how she healed Ransel, but he is certain there is no hope for Helka, who is this soaked in demonic energy, but she thinks otherwise. Giving up on the sick, injured, or distressed is not something she excels at. Since they plan to kill Helka anyway, she begs for one chance to try something and requests for a knife. Kalan is reluctant to oblige because he knows that if something goes wrong with her attempt, it is them who will suffer the wrong, but eventually gives in, tossing her a knife for Helka's sake. Glad they want to save Helka too, Akarna wastes no time and draws her blood. Before she knows it though, he takes her hand and sips the blood vigorously. The more he sips, the more she senses the demonic aura reduce until his demonic energy finally evaporates, leaving him and hiding in various places across the village. She looks forward to attending to that later, but the little she has done now is enough to convince Kaelin that she is the real deal. That's why he drops by and formally introduces himself to her. He is truly grateful for her effort, no doubt. But he can't shake off the thought that she is doing this for a reward. After all, he saw no other reason why an outsider would mingle with their internal matters. As a Karna, this is only her duty, a duty the temple exploited for 5 years without offering her a gift. It's ironic that in a few hours of knowing some other members of Ransel's despised race, she prefers their treatment to that of the temple. Anyway, she doesn't mind getting rewarded, and Kaelin sees no reason why she shouldn't be. His comrade Helka had been screaming about wanting to die for the past few days. This is the first time they are seeing him sleep peacefully. Isn't it heartwarming? He wants to know if there is anything she needs to quicken Helka's healing process and is willing to get it for her. As he speaks, Akarna notices that they've decided to trust her with his healing and the hostility from earlier is gone. Silently, this tells her that Helka must really be important to his comrades. Concerning what she needs to continue healing him, she requests for a sealed space to continue. She needs this sealed space to prevent demonic energy from leaking out like last time. Kaelin instructs one of them to prepare a place and then remembers to ask for her name. Like she told Ransel, she tells him that her name is Akarna. With his question answered, she has one of her own. She requests information on the person she is supposed to heal. He doesn't ask her why she wants to know, but instead takes her in for tea and reveals to her that Helka was the great mage of their region. He ended up that way because he took on all the contamination of the place they lived in. He claims this happened because they, children of Elanthos, served a single Elanthos that they were born from and served. Since they didn't have an Elanthos, they were vulnerable to dark energy. Curious, she asks what an Elanthos is, and he explains that it is a sacred tree, a guardian who watches over them. It is a tree imbued with spiritual power, and each group of their people share one Elanthos. They are all branches of that tree. You can call them brothers, if you may, and by that definition, Helka is the eldest of them all. Still on the matter, she wants to know if they have any females among their kind, and indeed they do. The only problem is that a female form manifesting was rare among the children of Elanthos. It's possible that only one can be born to a colony, explaining why she didn't see any women. Away from a rundown of their existence, he delves into the matter at hand, which is how Helka got into the bind he is in. It turns out that their Elanthos was dying, due to the massive amount of dark energy it had taken in. To prevent it from dying and casting their tribe into discord, Helka took all the dark energy into his body. He sacrificed himself and kept the energy stored up in himself, to prevent it from leaking into their land. He saved them at his own expense and has wished for death ever since. His brothers have always been willing to help him, if there was a way. Now there is one. Akarna wants to discuss the reward that was promised her. They have always been willing to give anything to make sure their brother returns to his normal self. On hearing that from Kalan, she agrees to help, keeping her request for, after she heals. It isn't anything big. She just needs them to protect her from the Empire. She plans to ensure that all her connections to the Empire are severed. But for now, she'll focus on helping Helka feel better. For that purpose, she is taken to the room that was prepared. It's the house he used to live in, and they chose it because it's a familiar place. Kaelin tells her that once she enters, a barrier will be enforced outside and no one will be able to enter. He charges her to let him know when she is ready, which she would do. Right after, she has a chat with Ransel. He was distressed and came here as fast as he could, after he heard everything. He is worried about her and begs her to tell him if she'll really be fine after she heals his brother. When she healed him, He remembers her bleeding a lot, but she is sure she'll be alright, although the way he is acting makes her want to complain a little. He wants to know if there is anything she needs, and she requests for a sharp knife. One of Ransel's brothers hands it to her, along with the instructions on where to stab Helka if he went berserk. He is positive they can stick him up later, and gives her this advice because once she enters the barrier it'll be up to her to fend for herself if the need arose. She recounts that he was there the night before. More stuff than he is now. She is moved by his real personality, but Ransel thinks him immature and annoying, pulling him away by the ear so Akarna can get to work. Before she goes in, he wishes her well, enough final motivation for her. When she goes into Helka's place, she was told that he was laying down, resting, but meets him awake and on his feet. She tries to talk to him, but he hastily takes her by the hand and leads her away. Where he is taking her to, she has no idea. She doesn't even understand what is going on and asks him to at least say something to her. When he leads her to a bed, that should be enough to tell her what's going on, but she doesn't catch on until he tries to kiss her and she has to push him away. His actions cause Callan's warning to replay in her head. He had earlier on told her that when Helka goes berserk, he is similar to a beast. She didn't know this is what he meant until now. The more she resists, the closer he gets, and she understands why. It's because when he held on to her last night, his body felt his pain subdued, and now he instinctively craves that peace. While she tries to make him back off, promising to help him feel better, he remains adamant and she decides to grab her dagger. Maybe by creating a cut, she can make him focus more on her blood and not her. Her attempt to grab the dagger is a war, and when she finally gets it, she notices Helka is aroused, and thinking about that for a second, ends up getting her cut. That works for her. Still, that's why she points her hand to Helka and asks him to do whatever he wants. Seeing her bleed, he instantly switches moods, but she can't understand why. Like the previous night, she expected him to grab her hand, but instead he starts crying and staring at the injury. His reaction confuses her, prompting her to start begging him to reveal the cause of his tears. In time, she realizes he feels bad because of her injury, and she is forced to console him, promising him that she is all right. An injury like this is pickles to her. It heals quickly, and she proves that by showing him the healed palm. Witnessing this, his tears dry and his smile comes back, making her smile too. Before now, no one cared if she got hurt, and getting hurt like this is what she does. As a Karna, so she is used to the pain. She lets Helka know about her speedy healing ability while thinking about the temple. Compared to him, the temple and people at the Empire were always cruel to her. While he, a stranger, sympathized with her for her getting hurt, they forced her to go into the wastelands and hurt herself for their benefit. She doubts that they loved her as they claimed and waves the thought away, focusing on Helka, who she is supposed to heal. Due to how sensitive he is being, she decides to heal him with kisses, but that only leads to intimacy. In the process, she blacks out, waking up to see him seated by the side of the bed. Since she's awake, he has something he'd like to ask her. She is stunned that now he is talking normally. Earlier on, he was acting beastly. Anyway, his question borders on their intimacy. He thinks he coerced her into it, but she argues that he didn't. When he came back to his senses, what he saw said otherwise, but she continues arguing that it happened on her own demand. Arguing with Helka would be fruitless, plus she is okay with them getting heated. It's her way of getting her mind off Aleph. She can't tell him that though, and sits back as he continues pointing out things that make him convinced that he lost it and got forceful. Things like the blood stain on his bed. She tries to tell him that although the blood is hers, it came from a self-inflicted wound. She shows him her hand as proof, but with no marks on it because of her super fast healing ability, nor any new wounds on her body. He decides to believe she's lying. In a more serious tone, he demands to know if he used force on her. Trying to convince him that he didn't, ends up making her throat sore and causes her to cough vigorously. Out of concern for her, he concocts a drink and gives it to her. It's his mage ability in action, and while drinking, she silently praises his skill. Moving forward, Helka asks for her name. It'll be nice if he could address his savior by her name, right? She tells him that he can call her Akarna, but the mage freezes. The only Akarna he knows is the Akarna of Carnassian, but she doesn't know what a Carnassian is. Her ignorance prompts the explanation that follows, an explanation Helka does, with the aid of a magical projection of a world other than hers, and this one she is in. It is a world that is home to their gods, a world called El Regnil, and Carnassian is one of the continents there. He further reveals that Akana is not a name, but a title for people who live there. He doesn't want that. What he requires is her real name. It's been so long since she used her first world name that it feels awkward to say it, still she does. telling him that her real name is Seoji Woo. He gets the name wrong on his first try, calling her Seoju, the same error the priests at the temple made when she told them her name. It didn't take them long to disregard that name and force her to go by Akarna, the name she came here to hear. 5 years ago, she abandoned the name Seoji Woo, so she is okay with being called Akarna, although he isn't okay with calling her that. He refuses to acknowledge a name that isn't really hers, making a big deal out of this, since he thinks it proper that he address the person he owes an apology by her name. She still sees no reason for an apology, but he presses about it, claiming he doesn't want to make her afraid. His nagging gets to a point that she has to place her hand over his mouth and yell that she isn't afraid. Stopping him from talking only works for some seconds, and then he slips away and explains to her that although he has no clear memory of how she got here, he is well aware that he could have consumed her if something went wrong. That's the way he is. He can't say the same for her though. She is not of this world and borrowed the powers of Akarna. To the people of this world, she is seen as a person who crossed dimensions. It's her first time hearing of this, which is why she breaks down in tears. She had thought herself the messenger of the gods with divine duty, but he breaks it to her that there are no gods, only phenomena. Akarna is also a phenomenon. Her gift is actually the result of her body developing to adapt to their foreign world. The temple knew this before they dosed her with their ideals and exploited her. They fed her with lies, like she was summoned by the gods. They threatened to replace her if she went out of line or died. They kept telling her she was a gift from the gods, but if that isn't true, then why is she really here? There's so much she wants to ask, and Helka is the only one with the answers she needs, so she leans on him. Problem is, he is starting to lose it again, blacking out to the point that he can't even hear the many questions she is throwing at him concerning his revelation. When he does regain consciousnness, he begs her to run away, as he thinks he is about to frighten her again. In other words, what happened earlier on is about to happen again. Panicking, Jiwoo, we can call her that now, tries to run away, but she isn't fast enough and they end up getting intimate again. At the end of it all, she wakes up in his arms and he apologizes for losing control again. In the process of his apology, though, he calls her Seoju, messing up her name, but she thinks it much better than the name that tormented her for 5 long years, the name Akarna. While bearing that name, she dressed like the character, silenced her emotions, like the position required, and not even one person called her anything other than that name. Even the crown prince who claimed he loved her, called her that name. So which was she to him, Akarna, or Seojiwoo? She forgot she was human if not for Helka, who just reminded her that she is. Although he got the name wrong at first, she isn't offended and corrects him. It's cute when at his second attempt he gets it. So cute that she ends up in tears. With no idea why she broke down, he consoles her. While he is at it, she remembers when a party was held to celebrate the combined efforts of her and the crown prince in bringing peace to their land. Then she saw the celebration as perfect and hoped for a dance with the crown prince after he had promised her one. Not just any dance moreover, but the first dance. It wasn't common for her to attend social events such as this one, as her role as Akarna restricted her to events organized by the temple. This event though, due to the crown prince's influence, she was allowed to attend. With the first dance, she wanted to claim Aleph in front of everyone, show them that he is hers, but he refused her that opportunity, treated her wish like it meant nothing, under the guise of respecting the social order. Before the host of guests, he disrespected her, ordering her not to touch him when she kept begging for the dance. By doing so, he made her an object of gossip while he went to dance with the count's sneaky daughter. It was the worst first social event experience, and she had to watch him have the first dance with that woman while she hurt from being left on her own. This is getting interesting. Please comment Akarna below for part 2. Hope you are enjoying our channel.